Some women connect well to their pelvic floor. Some women don't have any issues with incontinence or tight pelvic floors or anything like that. Some women's pelvic floors do not impact their birth in a negative way, but for many women they do. And for many women they don't even know that their pelvic floor is dysfunctional. Some signs that your pelvic floor might be dysfunctional is if you experience painful sex, that might increase around the time of your period. That is a sign that your pelvic floor muscles are tight. They're in a tight state, and or they don't have the neuromuscular control to contract and relax as needed. Another sign would be incontinence, so loss of urine, gas, or stool. If you're sneezing, or if you're doing a box jump, or if it's just that you can't make it to the bathroom in time, that's all considered incontinence, even if you're otherwise really strong, and it needs to be addressed. All that being said, pelvic floor exercises and pelvic floor health is not just for birth, it's for women. Let's get started with a few different ways that we can improve our neuromuscular connection to our pelvic floor. We're going to go through a lot of the same contractions we talked about before, just in different positions. So the first position that we're going to use is sitting on a pregnancy ball. Our pelvic floor, it's harder to connect to. We can't see it. We can't connect to it as easily as we can, say, to our diaphragm. So sometimes we need more input. So this upward pressure of the ball into our pelvic floor can increase that input and help us feel what's going on. And as you inhale, feel your pelvic floor drop into the ball. And as you exhale, feel it recoil up from the ball. Another way that you can increase the input up through your pelvic floor is to take something like a pillowcase like I have here, or a hand towel, roll it up just enough to comfortably sit between your tailbones, up kind of in your pelvic floor. It's going to provide upward pressure. And it shouldn't be painful or uncomfortable, it should just provide some input so that you can feel a little more clearly what's going on. So again, inhale. Allow your pelvic floor to drop down into the roll. Exhale and feel it come up from the roll. And then on one of your inhales, stop and try to bulge that pelvic floor into that roll. As a side note, if you feel that you cannot connect to the pelvic floor whatsoever and you're having difficulty doing these contractions at all, forget the neutral posture and try to roll your pelvis forward or back and see if that changes things. Our main goal is just to connect to the pelvic floor here. Our end goal is that we can do it in the proper alignment. Now we're going to try a few different types of contractions. Instead of just a gentle on and off with your breath, now I want you to try to do some quick contractions, some quick Kegels. So if you watch my hand, try to do contractions at this tempo. So first we're going to try 10 in a row. Now we're going to try to do a full contraction really slow and relax really slow with lots of control. Now contract only 50% and fully relax back down slowly. Now do an even smaller contraction, maybe just 10%, and come back down. And now lengthen. Try to bulge that pelvic floor open down into that roll, like an elevator dropping down through your pelvic floor past its resting state. That's what you need when that baby is emerging. So one way you can help your pelvic floor muscles contract if they're really weak and you can't connect to it in that sitting position where you're working against gravity is you can take your pelvic floor muscles out of gravity. So you can find a wedge like this or just simply roll up a pillow, but try to make your pelvic floor muscles face uphill like that. Inhale, allow your pelvic floor to relax. Exhale and draw your pelvic floor up towards your rib cage. Now it's out of gravity and you might find that it's a little easier to get that contraction. Now go through and try to hold that contraction. try to contract more quickly and more slowly. Try to contract 10%, then 50%, then 100%. And this is another position that takes your pelvic floor muscles out of gravity. So now gravity is helping your pelvic floor muscles contract. And here's a position you can use for labor comfort and for stretching your pelvic floor. So if you know that you have a tight pelvic floor, or if you're at risk for that because you're a runner or something like that, this position, especially with feet outside of your knees, is a good position to stretch your pelvic floor muscles. And next, we'll review, reflect, and act.